Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Annalise Poorman. On October 6th, President of the Ellettsville Plan Commission, David Drake, started the meeting by holding a moment of silence for Terry Baker, who passed away on September 8th.
The first thing I would like for us to do is to take a moment of silence for Terry Baker, who was a member of the Plan Commission for many years, as well as, I believe, the Board of Zoning Appeals. He passed away on September 8th, and we'll just take a moment of silence for him.
Commission member Dan Swafford asked how long Baker had been on the commission. Drake said he had been a part of it for about 20 years. Commission member Sandra Hash said he had been there as long as she has. Swafford said he will be missed. Next, the commission heard from Planning Director Denise Line about the voluntary annexation of Cook Incorporated property into the town of Ellettsville.
In Monroe County, all parcels are currently zoned L1, which is they're light residential, and ours is I1, which is light industrial, because of the type of work that they do, and they have some warehouses. It's considered their West Ellettsville facility. The properties are located in Council Ward 1. It'll be serviced by water. It does not require any other capital projects to extend services. And the cost for extension of utilities is borne by any developer that Cook may hire. Town will provide police, fire, EMS, and other governmental services immediately upon annexation. All legal notices have been sent to adjacent property owners and was published in the Herald Times.
Line said that planning staff recommend the approval of the annexation to the town council. Vice President of Marketing Communications for Cook and Envision Ellettsville co-chair Krista Curtis spoke on behalf of the petition and her work to get Cook.
We're actually really happy to be doing this, to be honest with you. Cook has a philosophy that we need to be heavily engaged and involved in our communities. And what's funny is that everybody thinks we're already a part of Ellettsville. So it's just very interesting when we started having the conversation to find out that we actually weren't in the city limits. So to sound cliche, it was a no-brainer to work with you all to bring our facility into the community. And I'm not gonna lie, I had a hand in this because I do feel it's also important for Envision Ellettsville that all the stakeholders are behind the town and what we're doing. So that's really all I have to say, unless you all have questions for me.
The commission voted unanimously to send a positive recommendation to the Ellettsville Town Council to approve the voluntary annexation. The next Ellettsville Plan Commission meeting will be held on November 3rd. The Bloomington City Council discussed the redistricting maps at their meeting held on October 6th. Councilmember Steve Volan asked the council to ask the Redistricting Advisory Committee to continue to work on the district maps.
After weeks of research and contemplation, I'll be asking you to join me in voting to send the map back to the Commission for reconsideration. There's an awful lot to say about this that there's no time for, which I'm going to send along as written material to the Commission. While I encourage you to write your own recommendations, I'll be submitting the following 3 basic principles. Number 1, 3rd Street is not that important as a border for council districts. Number 2, compactness should be de-emphasized in favor of emphasizing communities of interest. And 3, the ultimate community of interest in this town, a college town, is the specific area where constituents live in university-owned apartment buildings. But first, let's take 3rd Street. People don't decide where to live in Bloomington based on what township the home is in. They're concerned about neighborhoods and community, finding a good, affordable home. So for example, 3rd Street is no longer the southern border of campus, it goes through it. There are buildings IU owns south of 3rd and Perry 7, which is pictured, as well as several fraternities and sororities, which are all contiguous with or part of the campus already. People who live in Perry 7 think of their neighborhood as the campus, not as Elm Heights. But Park Ridge East and Gentry Estates have a lot in common as well, being on the east edge of the city. I think they'd be happier being together in the same district than they care about 3rd Street as a dividing line.
Volan also said that the Commission's focus on compactness scores was at the expense of keeping neighborhoods with common interests together.
But let's ask ourselves, what's the point in compactness anyway? It's not to draw maps with satisfying lines. The Commission, it's to unify communities of character. The Commission focused on 3rd Street and compactness, I think, at the expense of character. The bottom line is it's just not that important to have perfectly square districts if it means that neighborhoods with common interests get divided up.
Volan's third argument was that the maps did not focus on the Indiana University population when the city is a college town. Volan shared that according to the census data over the years, the student population is large enough to be considered for its own district. He urged the other council members to ask the Commission to take this into consideration.
And yet, there are students here, in this case from Bloomington 7, who've been working to get their neighbors registered to vote. We have to make an effort to engage constituencies, a constituency that is half the city. This is the most obvious and expedient way, and now is the best opportunity we're going to have for a decade. The proposed map 11 doesn't go far enough to this end and is still mixing the more eclectic neighborhoods to the southwest of this image with the monolith of campus housing that the purple represents, whose constituents have unusual characteristics and unusual concerns. I'm agnostic about my map 18, but I'm not agnostic about serving the student constituents. I want to urge you to urge the Commission to rework the map, taking this into account.
Council member Sue Scambaluri said that while she believes students should have every right to participate in the civic process without any obstacles, she did not understand why the redistricting maps should address the issue.
So continuing along that same train of thought, I wholeheartedly agree students are every much of a resident as I am or anybody on this council. The notion that students can't participate or there are obstacles to participation, I'm wondering why those need to be solved by this map. And not, I think, for example, one of the biggest impediments or obstacles to a student being on council is the fact that we have 4-year terms. And that doesn't fit well with the academic pattern that many students follow. So I'm curious as to why this map is necessary to solve it.
The council voted to approve the new district maps with a close vote of 5-4, with council members Sandberg, Scambaluri, Sims, Smith, and Rollo voting in favor of maps, and Flaherty, Piedmont Smith, Rosenbarger, Volan voting in opposition. The next Bloomington City Council meeting will be held on October 12th. And we'll have more CATSweek after this message.
For hurting families in Monroe County.
A contribution to children who are vulnerable and in need of an advocate.
A staff that goes above and beyond to support and advocate for children in need of services.
The web of remarkable people who are dealing with difficult situations.
So many young people that are in need of help and trying to find a stable family, a stable place to live. Without the CASAs to make that happen, many of them would be unable to find a good home.
I love being that voice for the child who can't speak for themselves in court.
It takes me out of my comfort zone, and it also helps others.
CASA means supporting our community.
Being a CASA is making sure that your village is healthy and whole, and that the children in your village will someday be able to help the village as well.
A child who doesn't have a voice, maybe in their family situation or a school situation, now has a voice that can advocate for them.
I really enjoy working with children that are going through difficult times and letting them know that I care about their future.
We are privileged with our charge of representing the best interest of children. And so therefore we can advocate for exactly what they need without restriction, focusing on their best interest.
I want to repair the world one child at a time.
Welcome back to CATSweek. At the Election Board meeting on October 6th, Election Supervisor Karen Wheeler shared that it is National Voter Education Week and gave some important information on voting.
This is National Voter Education Week from October 3rd to the 7th. If you didn't know that, or if our audience didn't know that, I think that's very interesting. And IU has done different things to promote that. And then October 12th around noon, of course, our early voting starts October 12th. I should probably just back up a little bit. October 11th is the last day you can register to vote. And you can do that online at indianavoters.com if you have an Indiana driver's license or an Indiana ID. Otherwise, you can send it in or you can come into our office. And if you haven't registered, we really would like that for it to happen. But then on the 12th, we start early voting. And that's at 302 South Walnut Street, where it used to be the Napa building, used to be the blue building. It's no longer blue. It's a very nice beige. It looks very, very nice. And it's between the convention center and the Bloomington bus transit right in the middle. We will have more signage, more flags. I think it'll be easier to find, although people did do a good job of finding it. Anyway, on October 12th at noon, we're going to have, it's what's called an early voting press conference. And that is with IU Big Ten Challenge Committee / PACE. They do a lot of things with voter registration, and they're going to have some cameras there, wanting to interview a few people. They want to show how people are coming in to vote. So it's just all good advertisement for us, I believe.
County Clerk Nicole Brown explained that the first day of early voting will be held on a Wednesday this year instead of a Tuesday due to Columbus Day.
And I would only follow up with a couple of things. One, just because it was confusing to me. So in case anyone else is confused with October 12th being a Wednesday, the issue is that Columbus Day is celebrated at the state. That is a state holiday. And so that would ordinarily have been the last day to register to vote, but you get an extra day because of the state holiday. It is not a county holiday here in Monroe. And so that is why instead of early voting normally starting on a Tuesday, this year it will start on a Wednesday. It is still 28 days before the election. So I just wanted to clarify that for anybody who may be concerned and show up on a Tuesday.
Board Chair Shruti Rana asked for clarification of when exactly online voter registration will end. Brown said that residents have until just before midnight at 11:59 p.m. on October 11th to register to vote. Next, the Election Board heard from the Staff Liaison Council for Community Accessibility for City of Bloomington and Community Family Resources Department, Michael Shermis, about accessibility at polling sites. Brown gave some history to the board before Shermis spoke.
One of the things that has happened is Indiana Disability Rights reached out to me and asked to meet me at the conference. For whatever reason, we weren't able to meet up. But then they came and supplemented, not replaced, supplemented some very good work that was done by our good friends a couple of years back, where we went out to visit all of our polling sites, gave us feedback on what was working, what could be improved, that type of thing. And we continue to be very grateful for that, and it has made things easier. A couple of things have happened. When the Indiana Disability Rights representative came out, she recommended some language regarding our bathrooms. We had particular language that we were all very comfortable with using, and she disagreed. Mr. Shermis, who is going to speak to us today, learned of that, and he didn't have the background story for why it was even coming up as an issue. So I explained it, and I just want to quickly explain it here. I'll try to be very brief, but it will lead into why he's talking with us today. There's another county in Indiana who changed the location where disabled voters would go in to vote, the entrance, your ingress. Instead of putting a sign up that said that the entrance had changed, the sign said, no handicap voting here. You can imagine how that went over to anybody who saw it. And in the age of camera phones, it did not go over well in that county. So it is still relayed to clerks as a cautionary tale to make sure your signage says what it needs to say. And so we do take care with that. We do not have that issue in Monroe County. I want to be very clear, but there is a little nuance that I'm going to have Mr. Sherman explain, and we can have further discussion after that.
Shermis explained his job making sure that buildings are to code to ensure that they are accessible. He said there were a few things they had asked the county to address to ensure accessibility at the polling locations.
I work with volunteer surveyors to ensure that facilities in Bloomington are accessible. So we do a lot of different surveys for restaurants and retail stores, but occasionally we get asked by somebody to do other surveys. And we worked with board member Turner here to do all of the polling sites in Bloomington and beyond. We usually don't go outside of Bloomington, but for this, every member thought that this was important enough that we would break the boundaries and go out and do them all. I think there were 32 sites at the time.
There were.
Yeah. And I believe that out of those 32 sites, there might have been 5 that did not have accessible restrooms. And there were other accessibility issues at various sites. And when we had that full list of here are the barriers, the question immediately was raised, what are we going to do to mitigate these barriers? Because it's not like you can just say, yeah, we'll eliminate that polling site because it's not accessible, because we realize that takes it away from certain neighborhoods and areas that need to have a polling site somewhere. So we said, what are we going to do to mitigate those things? And there was back and forth on those mitigations. And when we got them and looked them over and reviewed them, we came back with, we suggest these changes, and we did some negotiation. And of course, one of the ones that was the more challenging one was for the restrooms itself, because that's a bigger deal, not having any restrooms. And so we agreed that if we had a sign that was visible that said, there are no accessible restrooms at this polling site, if you need an accommodation, please come see a poll worker at the front of the line. And everybody agreed that that was a good mitigation, including several people from the Council for Community Accessibility, some obviously in wheelchairs, et cetera. And so that was the agreement. This is what we agree that will be the right wording, and everybody walked away from that as in, like, we're good with this. We feel this is good communication to people who are in wheelchairs specifically, that they know that they have the opportunity to immediately get up into the front of the line, get their voting done, and leave. Because sometimes it can be very hard on them waiting in long lines, especially when it comes to restroom issues. And so this was the mitigation we all agreed upon. And so, of course, when it came up that there was the chance of changing this, it didn't sit too well with members of the disability community. And so we came to you all, several of you, as a matter of fact, with what can we do? Can we talk this through? And I feel like after talking it through with everybody that we agreed that these signs could still stand the way they are and that everybody was comfortable with them.
The next election board meeting will be held on November 3rd. On October 5th, at the Monroe County Board of Zoning Appeals, planning staff shared their findings of fact for the Bedford Recycling Center at 405 West Dillman Road.
All decisions of the Board of Zoning Appeals have to be memorialized by written findings of fact and conclusions of law. And this item today is placed before you for your consideration. It contains statements of fact, which we believe are supported by the record, and the statement of fact we believe support the conclusions that are stated in those findings. I think in this case, the BZA decision was based on an interpretation of the central garbage rubbish collection facility use. And so we have findings and authority in there that relate and reflect the discussions that the BZA had regarding that definition. So we present those to you for approval.
Board member Pamela Davidson said she appreciated the thoroughness of the report.
I read them and I thought they were very thorough and set out in a very meticulous way each incremental step. So I appreciated that factual recitation.
The board unanimously approved the findings of fact. Next, the board discussed a use variance request made by petitioner Thomas Gott. County Planner Daniel Brown presented the use variance request.
This is a use variance to establish a general contractor use at this property, 3290 South Night Ridge Road in Salt Creek Township, Section 18. The total of 0.86 acres, more or less, and is currently zoned conservation residential. The petitioner is requesting a use variance to establish a general contractor business so that he may park construction vehicles associated with the business Gott Tree Services on his residence rather than at another location. Chapter 802 defines general contractor as follows: an individual who contracts to perform building/structure construction related work or to provide supplies on a large scale, or an individual who contracts to erect buildings and or other structures. Construction related work may include, but are not limited to, plumbing, landscaping, electrical, framing, concrete, masonry, roofing, etc. However, Chapter 802 allows general contractor only in the general business, light industrial, and heavy industrial zones, and are subject to the following condition. Number 15, the Planning Commission may attach additional conditions to its approval in order to prevent injurious or obnoxious dust, fumes, gases, noise, odors, refuse matter, smoke, vibrations, water-carried waste, or other objectionable conditions to protect and preserve the character of the neighborhood.
Brown said that the petitioner is currently spending $1,000 every month to store his equipment and would like to get his property rezoned to store his contracting trucks in his driveway to save money. Brown shared that there were multiple remonstrances that the planning department received. Davidson asked if the petitioner still owned all of the vehicles or if he will only have 2 vehicles.
Somewhere in the factual materials, Mr. Gott said he has closed his business, he's no longer operating. Does he still own all these vehicles? In September, that's pretty recent, September 19th. It's today only, October 5th. But does he still own this long list of vehicles? Or, because it said from his letter, I want to park 2 vehicles that I'm going to hold on to in case I start the business. It refers to 2 vehicles. So how consistent is that list with current times? Do you know?
Brown shared that the planning department recommended that they deny the use variance. The board voted to deny the use variance. Clements clarified that if Gott does retire and they are not being used, then he does not need the variance.
Yes, I just want to stipulate so that Mr. Gott understands that if you're retired and those vehicles aren't going in and out, you can park them on your property. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
So, yeah. Mr. Gott, the variance isn't needed if they're just parked there. Just so that you know that,
The next Monroe County Board of Zoning Appeals meeting will be held on November 2nd. And we'll have more CATSweek after this message.
I'm at risk of thinking there's just no point in trying.
I'm at risk of looking in the mirror and hating what I see.
I'm at risk of being told not to tell.
But with Girls Inc. in my corner,
I will not be another statistic.
I will fight for myself.
With you in my corner, I will win.
Fuel her fire and she will change the world. Girls Inc.
Welcome back to CATSweek. At the Monroe County Commissioners meeting on October 5th, Director of Housing Security Mary Morgan gave a report on Heading Home of South Central Indiana's work.
Many of you were involved in the Heading Home effort when we started. Our overall goal is to make homelessness rare, brief, and non-repeating, but a lot of that work is focused on housing insecurity, really to try to prevent people from falling into homelessness before some crisis happened. So that's what our work is. Next slide, please. And to do that work, we're focusing on long-term initiatives, structural initiatives, reducing homelessness, increasing affordable housing, providing effective strategies for addressing acute housing issues. And as a reminder, in addition to Monroe County, our partners include the Community Foundation of Bloomington and Monroe County, United Way of Monroe County, the City of Bloomington, Bloomington Township, the South Central Housing Network, and many others. And we're really grateful for your involvement.
Morgan said that they joined the national organization called Built for Zero.
One of our biggest initiatives is joining Built for Zero. It's a national network working with over 100 communities to decrease homelessness. We're the first community in Indiana to join Built for Zero, and that gives us access to all of their resources, including some financial resources. They received a $100 million MacArthur Foundation grant that is going to be passed through to their members. So if we have a project that we want to pilot, we think that we can make a case for that. We can go to Built for Zero and get some funding for that to really leverage your funds in a significant way. Next slide, please. Our initial goals for Built for Zero, and this will be a multi-year process working with them. We're trying to ensure that our region has quality data. We're going to be working on that probably for the next several months. We hope to have a public dashboard available in early 2023, but we're already reporting out numbers. We don't have full participation, so not all of the people who are working with clients who are experiencing homelessness participate in the same database. So we're trying to work through some of those issues. It's a bit challenging, but we've made some progress, and I'm optimistic about that. We're also putting an initial focus on people who are veterans who are homeless. We feel like that's a relatively small population, so we can kind of figure out how to work through the process with that group. And we also created an advisory committee to help us with that. There are a lot of services for veterans, so trying to be able to connect those services to the people who need them.
Morgan also said they have been collaborating with South Central Housing Network, the United Way of South Central Indiana, and the Owen County Community Foundation. Morgan shared that they applied for a grant to fund the rental renovation pilot project.
We have applied for a $1.5 million IU Health Community Impact Investment Grant for a rental renovation program. And again, we're looking for sources where we can leverage our resources. The goal of this is to create access to more rental units. The idea is that if there are landlords who have rental units that are subpar, maybe not even habitable, we can provide funding for them to renovate those projects in exchange for giving long-term leases to tenants who have vouchers. It's increasingly difficult for landlords to find landlords who will do that. So we're trying to look for innovative ways to address that issue.
Commissioner Penny Githens said she was pleased with the forward motion that they have been able to achieve. Commissioner Lee Jones complimented Morgan on the multi-pronged approach that they have been taking to address the problem.
I'm just really pleased to hear how multi-pronged this plan is. You're approaching things from so many different directions, and this is a pretty massive problem that is going to require more than one solution.
The commissioners all thanked Morgan for the report and the work that they have been doing. The next Monroe County Commissioners meeting will be held on October 12th. And that is all for CATSweek. Thank you for joining us. For CATS and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.